So here, continuing on with our, I don't even know what that is on the side there. There we go. Continuing on with our slide presentations here. We have some photos. We're gonna look through a series of photos. And as a fire inspector, I want you to be open-minded and think of what we're looking at here, and think of the issues that we're seeing. Think of the implications of things that we're seeing and why it's all relative. So I can tell you, back in my days of elementary school, we had a room that looked very, very similar to this. A lot of your old masonry, CMU type constructed educational occupancies had rooms that looked like this. Okay, here we have this room, we have signage on this. Okay, what are we seeing in this picture? What kind of issues are we seeing? There would be something that would, I won't say be deficient, because it's not deficient until we actually look it up and make sure that we can actually call it as a deficiency. But what are some red flags? What are things that we're seeing that we wanna look into? We wanna investigate more.
There's storage in there. It looks like a janitorial cat that probably has chemicals on it. They're blocking the panel.
Yep, absolutely. We have storage. Looks like a janitor's closet. Looks like there's a broom there.
So there's that.
Rubbermaid, container. Probably some mop heads.
No federal.
Vacuum. What's that?
The old panel.
The old panel. Yep. A lot of old switchgear, electrical in here. What's that? That's a fuse box. Wide open. Okay. This is a huge door frame. What do you think is supposed to be happening with that door? Automatic closers. Do you see a closer device?
Nope.
I don't see a closer device there. Maybe it had spring hinges at one point, hard to tell. Should be a rated door frame and assembly. My guess is not only the electrical in here, probably leads to a boiler room. Okay, most of the time when you saw those doors like that, that was the entrance into the boiler room. The sign clearly says door must be kept closed. Probably has door chocks, or the door hardware was removed. So we have a hazardous or higher hazard space in here, probably in a corridor or adjacent to a corridor. So there's a lot of questions, a lot of red flags. How about this? We have sprinkler piping that's penetrating the top of that door frame. Maybe that wasn't the appropriate thing to do. Does it work? Does it not work? Those are questions that we have to consider. All right, how about this? What are we looking at here? We're looking at a door. Looks like there's a couple different pictures, so
Looking at an open fire door.
looking at an open fire door. It's a fire door because it says it's a fire door, right? Once again, keep closed. What's that? That's a door wedge. Okay, they're holding that door open. What's this?
The aftermarket stopper installed that now defeats the purpose of the fire rating on the door.
Correct. Once you start applying things to a door that's potentially a fire rated door, we don't know because we can't see the tags, so we have to just make the assumption. Once you start adding things that are not part of the door assembly, it's not how it was tested and approved. You start adding those on there, you start voiding the warranty, or you've lost your door rating, okay? The door manufacturer is gonna come back and say, that's not how it was tested or approved. We're not gonna classify that door as a rated door. You have lost your rating. I've seen scenarios in educational occupancies. brand new schools being built, all the classroom doors were required to be rated self-closing doors, just because of the circumstance of the construction of the building. Teachers wanted the doors to be able to stay open, so the maintenance man went out in this brand new building, bought 20, 30 of those, screwed them all into the door. We happened to get called to go do and won't say it's an inspection, but a complimentary site visit, walkthrough, okay? And when we did that, we saw all of those on there. Every single door, those doors are hundreds and hundreds and potentially up to $1,000 depending on the door. Every single one of those doors had to be replaced. The manufacturer would not allow that product to be on there. Somebody paid a lot of money for no good reason. Ask the question first. You know, have your clients, the people that you work for, if they ask you the question, have them reach out to us, or do your research, find out if it's acceptable. Contact the door manufacturer. That's the easiest way to do it. Find out who the door manufacturer is, call them up, email them. Hey, listen, they want to put stopper devices, you know, hold the door open. Can we affix this? They want to change the hardware. Can they do that? Can they use this hardware? If a door like this here, if that panic device on that fire rated door goes bad for some reason, and you just want to go to Home Depot and pick one up, if it's not part of the rated assembly, or if it's not a UL listed product, same scenario. That door is no good anymore, potentially. I've seen circumstances where we've gone through a brand new healthcare occupancy that they drilled sensors into the fire rated door, or they had to move some devices on the door and re-drill them. We had the door manufacturer come and recertify the doors for them, or we didn't do it. They paid for it, but that was the fix. If you're going to have this, if you have to do this, then you will have the door manufacturer come and either give you a fix for it, or approve the product and relabel the door to make sure that they have approved it that way. Provide the documentation.
Mark, question.
Sure.
So if we see one of those door stoppers like that affixed to the door in real life, would you instruct the person, as you know, especially to some of these people here that might find this in a business that it doesn't belong?
Mm-hmm.
Do they really realistically need to replace that door because it had the holes in it, or can they realistically just take the door stopper off?
They would have to actually contact the door manufacturer, because I can't make that decision. You know, I don't know if the door rating is still acceptable now with the holes that are in there. So sometimes the door manufacturers will say, take it out, throw some putty over it or some Bondo over it, or use this UL listed plate in its place, and it will be okay with that. But the door manufacturer has to provide that documentation to you or us to make sure that it's appropriate. Just removing it and leaving the holes exposed, or filling the holes with, plastic wood or wood filler, that doesn't cut it. And I'm not going to certify it. I'm not going to approve that, that type of a fix, not without the manufacturer saying it's okay. Because if there's a fire that occurs there and fire spreads to the next room because the door failed, or failed quicker than it should have, that puts me on the hook. And I would prefer not to be in that position. I prefer not to be sitting up on the stand saying I allowed that to happen without documentation. So it's all about documentation, if you can show proof. So in a case like this, we know nothing about the building in this photo here. But in a case like this, if they want to prop the doors open, rather than doing the door chalk or the kick down door hold open, they can actually have, if they have a fire alarm system, they can have their fire alarm company come in and do magnetic hold opens. It's literally a magnet that the door opens up and it sticks to, it holds the door open in its place. If the fire alarm goes off, the door is closed, it releases the magnet, shuts the power off to it. So there's options out there for people, all the time, you know, and people, you know, we often see it, architects and engineers, well, aesthetically, we wanna have a nice wide open area, but you can't. So what are the options? You have to put a rated door there. Well, we don't want the door. You're gonna have to have the door, but if you have a door that you wanna have open, maintain that nice aesthetics of that open room, put the door on, you know, magnetic door hold opens, tie it to the fire alarm. The only time those doors will close is if the fire alarm goes off, you know, then you've protected your space.
Are we allowed to make those recommendations, or is that, they have to figure it out as the designer / architect?
Well, that's a recommendation that you're not designing a damn thing, okay? That is one of those things where, you know, absolutely there's nothing wrong with that. You know, the option is build a wall, have it, you know, or build a set of doors that are fire rated and self-closing, positive latching all the time, you know, that are closed all the time, you know, like these, or have a, you know, magnetic door hold open in place, tied to the fire alarm. After that, it's for them to coordinate with the fire alarm company and make everything happen, but you can absolutely do that. What you can't do, and I apologize that I didn't bring up the listing here, I'll do that in a second, but what you can't do is tell them exactly how to construct a wall. They have to tell you how they're gonna construct a wall. My position, I am a plan reviewer. I am not a designer. So I don't design things, I review things. So for me to go and say, well, do, you know, 2 layers of 5/8 sheetrock and, you know, 2x6 metal studs, 16 on center, that's not for me to do. You provide that information for me, I will review, I will approve, and I will permit, or I will, you know, I will review and I will okay the, you know, the recommended repair to the inspection that I did, and the deficiency that I found. So how about this picture? What are we looking at here? Looking at Paul Willette's, for those of you who know Paul Willette's basement, you know, race fans hanging there, his memorabilia. We don't know what kind of occupancy this is, we have no clue, but, you know, maybe it's a garage or a man cave or something based on this, or maybe they had a birthday party and that says happy birthday or happy anniversary, so it looks like they have something up here too. But I'd say it's some sort of a commercial building. Looks like we have some doors with some fire rated or some panic hardware, self-closer device, exit signage, maybe a pull station, manual pull station. But what do we have for concerns with this photo?
Well, you have your
Ceiling
lighting.
covering.
Ceiling covering, lighting, what kind of issues do we have with we'll start with the lighting. What kind of issues do we have with the lighting?
Well, the material that's located in close proximity to the lighting.
Okay, so we're going back to the ceiling covering essentially. What's wrong with the ceiling covering?
It's drooping.
It's drooping.
We
Yeah,
don't, it
okay.
has no fire, well,
Not
more than likely it has no fire rate
More than likely it has no fire rating,
as a barrier.
right? It almost looks like plastic to me.
Yeah,
Maybe holding up insulation. You know, it's kind of tough to tell. But do we know? We don't. Is there any way for us to tell? No. How are we gonna move forward with this?
I ask some questions.
You're gonna ask questions. Their deficiency or their notice of violation or whatever you wanna call it is gonna be, please provide documentation of how this meets interior finish rating for whatever occupancy we're dealing with, right? So give me some information on it. I'll tell you, there's a lot of the box stores that are popping up. You may have contacted their corporate office recently that have exposed ceilings like this. A lot of your mercantiles, smaller mercantiles, 10,000 or under 10,000 square feet mercantiles, that, you know, they're steel buildings, and they have this on, you know, similar product to this on the exterior walls and in the ceilings. That's the insulation, steel building, Morton buildings or Murox buildings, steel buildings with the insulation, the plastic covering on the insulation, all over the place. Ask the question, you know, what's the flame spread rating? How does this meet the interior ceiling or wall finish rating? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna leave it exposed, or are you gonna be covering that product? Good question to ask. Okay? Any other items that are jumping out at you?
You just have different types of materials on the walls.
Different types of materials on the walls?
So it looks like you might have some drywall, you might have some paneling.
Yep. I'm guessing this is probably, this kind of looks almost masonry type,
Yeah.
but tough to tell. Paneling, I wouldn't argue that, it does kind of look like paneling. So again, depending on our occupancy, depending on, you know, the circumstances, ask the question, how does that meet the interior finish rating for that type of occupancy? You know, is it a class A, B, or C finish rating? What's it required to be? Okay, one other thing before we move on to the next slide that I want you to potentially find here.
No smokes or emergency lighting?
No smokes or emergency lighting. I'll agree with you on the emergency lighting. Smoke detection. I hear this all the time. I get phone calls from fire chiefs and you know, code officials, fire inspectors. Commercial building, there's no smoke detection. Is smoke detection required in a commercial building? Necessarily, I mean, you know, some places. What's that?
What's the occupancy?
What's the occupancy? Well, that's actually a fantastic question, believe it or not. What did you say?
The size as well.
The size as well? So where do we find smoke detectors generally?
On the ceiling.
On the ceiling? What kind of occupancies generally?
Homes.
Home? Yeah? Where people do what? Sleep. So if I have a bank, it's a commercial building, does a bank need to have a smoke detector in it, or a smoke detection? Are there people sleeping there?
No.
No. Smoke detection is required typically where people sleep. Okay? Why do we have smoke detectors? To wake people up, to alert them to be able to exit the area. Most of the time, smoke detection is gonna be found. There are other instances, so don't discredit it, but 99% of the time, you're gonna find smoke detection is required, or 100% of the time, smoke detection is required where people sleep. Daycares, if we have children sleeping, we're gonna have smoke detection, okay? So, smoke detection and fire alarm systems are not necessarily one and the same. Okay, we don't have fire alarms in our dwellings, in our homes, but we have smoke detection there. You may have a fire alarm system without smoke detection. It may be just a fire alarm system tied to the sprinkler system or tied to manual activated devices. So, smoke detectors in general, only when people are sleeping. You know, that is the first rule of thumb. Then you go into, you may have some exceptions to that. But the other item I wanted to point out, and I know it's very hard to see, we have a closer device on this door. We see any on that door?
Nope.
Okay, there isn't one on that door. What's on the other side of this door? It's an exit. We don't know if it actually is an exit to the exterior, or if it's an exit just to another room, or an exit to a corridor. We have no information about this, but these are all observations to make. Emergency lighting was a great one. I don't see any emergency lighting, and it looks pretty dark and dingy in here. Okay,
You even have some duct work, it looks like.
duct work,
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So if we have duct work, that's telling me that we have a warm air furnace probably. Okay, how about this building? What are we looking at here? We're looking at a building with some tires.
No ceiling wire.